Do they spend on screens? A group of health professionals today says that the speech and language development of preschoolers is in steady decline because of an over-reliance on phones and tablets.
According to a recent report by Ofcom, more than 25% of 3- and 4-year-olds own a smartphone. Astonishing, isn't it? Yeah. Our reporter Amy Garcia has been to a preschool in North Yorkshire to find out more.
What can I do with this one?
What could you dig? Well, you could scoop. Why don't you scoop up the soil that's fallen out?
This morning, these 3- and 4-year-olds at Mill Hill Community Primary are planting seeds in the outside area, learning through hands-on experience.
Who's going to do the stirring? Are you stirring?
It's something early years teachers here feel some children are missing out on, which is impacting their communication skills.
Our biggest concern is our children don't have the language to talk about the world around them. So it can be in terms of their social skills, so they are not used to articulating their wants, their needs. Some children really don't even have the language to say, please can I go to the toilet? So we're seeing children who are frustrated. Do we think it's going to be hot, hot, hot?
Kate Beck is the head of early years. In her 2 decades as a teacher, she says she's seen a steady decline in children's language skills and believes screens are a big factor.
We have some children who come in with some fabulous American accents or even American vocabulary. So nappies become diapers, garbage and stores instead of shops. They're definitely hearing that from the screen. The impact really is that they're not experiencing the world firsthand. They're seeing it through somebody else's eyes. So they're even down to the fact that they're watching children playing with toys on YouTube. So they're not even playing with them themselves.
Would you like to make a pizza now? Yes.
Sandy Chappell has been a speech and language therapist for 30 years and says the rise in referrals for 2- to 5-year-olds is alarming. She's part of the Health Professionals for Safer Screens group, calling for a public health campaign around the impact of screens on younger children. Some parents might use a device to calm their child down or so they can do some chores. Is it really that bad?
It is, because it soon becomes a habit, because it works. But then children don't learn to regulate their own emotions. And when that device isn't available, such as in the classroom, then they can have severe behavioural problems, and that's what teachers are having to deal with.
An Education Committee report found the harms of screen time significantly outweigh the benefits for young children. And a recent study suggested the average 3-year-old is exposed to nearly 3 hours of screen time per day, potentially missing out on over 1,000 fewer adult words and 200 conversational turns per day. A group of health professionals have come up with some guidance for parents around how much time younger children should be spending on screens. And it's recommended that from birth to 2 years old, no screens at all other than video chats with family and friends. And from age 2 to 5, 30 minutes maximum per day. Is that realistic?
Never. It's never going to happen, especially when they've got siblings that are on it a lot longer, so they want to be the same as them.
If they've got a screen in their face half the time, they're not there, they don't really talk to you or anything, so it's like I try and avoid that.
Sometimes when he's getting really excited, it can be a struggle to get it off him.
Do you ever have any problems trying to take the device off them?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they don't want to take the mobile back. So.
As we all battle our time on screens, teachers here are encouraging families to embrace real experiences together.
Amy Garcia there. Well, joined now on the sofa by GP and founder of the group Health Professionals for Safer Screens, Dr. Becky Foljambe, and by the speech and language consultant, Nikki West. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for coming in. Rebecca, from what you see day to day, why is this such an issue, do you think?
I think as health professionals across a broad range of specialties, we are becoming increasingly worried in all different settings. So consultant paediatricians, consultant psychiatrists, speech and language therapists. This is a concern because it's interfering with children, especially young children's healthy, normal, social, cognitive development. And we've found that it's become ubiquitous with the image of a child, even a baby. And we're finding that really concerning just from the optics of it walking into the waiting room. These children are all on screens. We're having to prise them out of children's hands sometimes just to examine them. And there is evidence that this is interfering with their ability to self-regulate, and it might be effective to give them a screen, what we call a digital dummy, to pacify them or occupy them. But there's good evidence now that that's impacting later on their ability to self-regulate their emotions, and they're not interacting with the world around them, which is how they learn at that age.
That's a really good point, isn't it? One of the things I sometimes wonder is, what is it doing to the patterns in their brain if a child doesn't know how to be bored or, I don't know, stare at the wall or, I suppose that's what you would call self-regulation, isn't it?
Yeah, and that ability to be bored is where their creativity comes from, their imagination. They'll then be more curious of the environment around them, which is, of course, how they shape their experiences and their memories, their whole development. And the problem with these screens is that they're interfering, they have whole child impacts.
Nikki, in terms of the development of their speech and their language, what do you notice, say, over the last 10 years?
There's been a huge decline in skills. 10, 15 years ago, we might have children who might have 1 or 2 speech difficulties or certain sounds that they couldn't say. What we're finding now is those consonants, the vowel sounds, their ability to focus, communicate, interact, their attention is really, really limited, and their vocabulary has massively decreased as well.
Is that because it's very passive?
I think so, and I think also it's so quick-paced, so everything is very short. Everyone is flicking through its seconds or just a couple of moments, and then they're moving on. And also it is often very one-way, so it's not that ability, even when, there are some fantastic apps and there is some great things with technology, but often there aren't things that are then going to listen to how the child's saying that sound and then model it back correctly for them. So even if they are copying some of those words and vocab, there's nothing to correct them if they've said it incorrectly.
OK, playing devil's advocate.
I knew you were going to do this.
But is there an argument that talking to one another isn't going to be such a thing in the future, and actually what kids are learning as the skills, listen to them tutting.
Go on.
Suddenly got really cold in here. But, but maybe kids are actually learning on the phones the skills that they're going to need in the 21st century. Rebecca.
Hello, Nikki. So there is zero learning. There is zero meaningful learning to be had for young children between the age of 0 to 18 months on these screens. That's a really important message which we're currently not communicating with parents. And in these preschool years where they're learning these skills around talking, listening, their social and cognitive and physical development, actually, that is found in physical interaction. So we've done guidance on recommended screen time, but parents aren't it's not being communicated to parents. So we need to be careful as well of these apps and facilities that are promoted as educational. They're often not. They're just self-proclaimed as educational. And we just need to be challenging this more, because the best way that children learn is in person. The way they learn to speak.
Yeah. There was a really scary thing that I saw the other day that was apps for newborns.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was quite scary. And I think also the whole change of... I was in a school recently and it had been raining, and then the parents had brought a baby in a pram, and we were talking about the child that they got in that nursery. As they came in, because obviously it was dry, they then pushed the hood of the pram out the way, and there was a 4-6-month-old baby that arched their back and screamed. And I hadn't realised, but there was a space in the hood for an iPad, and as that went out of sight, this baby was then massively dysregulated. And I think it's that whole thing of, being able to learn the pace of conversation that I will talk and then you will talk, that we've got that vocabulary there, that we can hear the rhyme and the patterns in words. And what's really hard is that even like the intonation of how we say something, that doesn't come over if you have got text on a screen.
The government would say that more research is needed before we know definitively what is happening to children's brains.
I think over the last 10, 15 years, and the speech and language therapists that are worldwide, we've all seen exactly the same thing. I think definitely lockdown, the cost of living crisis, that has compounded things, but it has been a very noticeable, sharp decline in skills that we've seen.
And has everyone got an American accent?
Not everyone,
oh, yeah.
but it's
It happens.
There are
I
a
mean,
lot of children.
Yeah, the government would say that, which is frustrating because we've got clinicians across all specialties on our group and it's growing so fast. And I think what we need to firstly communicate is there is evidence, there is robust international evidence and more coming from the UK, which is compelling. And as health professionals, we're seeing it in our daily practice and we need to act on the precautionary principle. We've seen enough to remove it until we can prove that it's safe. This product was put in children's hands without proving that it was safe. And we're seeing in our daily practice the harms. So I think we have seen enough and we need to act now.
So interesting. Every household is affected in some way, aren't they? Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and talking to us this morning.
And do let us know what you think about that.
Earlier on, we asked for you to send in your best puns and jokes, not just because it's Tuesday morning, but because last night was the UK Pun Championships and